Pastor Corey here again with another weekly Facebook devotional. Ignorance is bliss. And this is a statement that all of us have heard and most all of us have said at one point in time or another. And so we hear it said, and we have said it for a number of different reasons about a number of different things. But most commonly, we say it in defense of our not knowing or wanting to know about something. And since we don't know about it, then we can be happy in that area because we don't have to worry about it because we don't know, and it'll just be what it'll be. That is actually the meaning that you find if you Google this phrase and what it means. It says this on Google: if you don't know about something, you don't have to worry about it. So especially what is going on with our society today with the COVID-19 pandemic and the riots and protests around justice and racism, and all the news and information surrounding all of this, it would be easy for us to say, ignorance is bliss. There's so much going on and so much different stuff that it is easier for me to just bury my head in the sand and to not have to deal with it or become educated about it. Because if I don't know about it and I can keep from it, then I don't have to worry about it. Or we take the philosophy of Timon and Pumbaa from the Lion King: Hakuna Matata. No worries. Everything is okay. But I find it very interesting that if we look in Romans chapter 1, verses 21 through 23, we see that the Apostle Paul, through inspiration of the Holy Spirit, writes this. Romans 1, 21 through 23. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man, and birds, and animals, and creeping things. So especially as it comes to God and knowing him, ignorance is 100% not bliss at all, period. The they that we see in verse 21, we see from verse 18, are those who are ungodly and unrighteous. And so although they knew of God, they chose to be ignorant toward him. And although they may have had some fleeting happiness because of their ignorance, they did not, nor would they ever experience bliss. Because bliss is defined as perfect happiness, great joy. And what we see from verses like Proverbs 10:28, Nehemiah 8:10, Romans 15:13, and 1 Peter 1:8 through 9 is that true and perfect joy and happiness are found in God and in him alone. So to think that being ignorant toward God and the things of him will lead them to bliss is foolishness, which is what Paul directly says in verse 22 when he says, claiming to be wise, they became fools. And this goes hand in hand with Proverbs 9:10, which says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the Holy One is insight. Their ignorance did not lead them to bliss, but led them to become futile in their thinking and having their foolish hearts darkened and exchanging the glory of the immortal God, the Creator, for images resembling the creation that were made by that same creation. I mean, how much sense does that make? If I get the option to choose between worshiping the Creator or the creation, that should be a no-brainer. Because why would I worship something that was created if I can worship that which created it? Even trying to type that sentence was just jumbled. And I can't make this sentence make sense because the idea doesn't make sense. They thought their ignorance toward God would lead them to something greater or more, but it led them to something less and emptier. They thought their ignorance toward God would lead them to wisdom, but led them to foolishness. They thought it was going to lead them to something good, but it led them to something that was altogether anything but good. And here's the thing. Although their ignorance toward God may have given them some false sense of happiness or pleasure or satisfaction for a little while, one day they were still going to have to stand before God in judgment. And in that moment, claiming ignorance would not give them a free pass. It is what we find at the beginning of this passage in Romans 1:18 when Paul says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth." Our God is the only God who, if everyone in the world stopped believing in him, he would still exist and his truth would still be true. Just because someone claims ignorance or unbelief doesn't mean God stops existing or God will no longer hold them accountable. If people stop believing in Buddha or the cultic gods, they would cease to exist. But this is not true of our God. Many times, ignorance is easy. Ignorance is laziness. Ignorance is complacency. Ignorance is a lack of concern or compassion or caring. Ignorance leads to a cold-heartedness. Ignorance leads to foolishness. But very rarely, if ever, is ignorance bliss. And this is true of God and of knowing him. It's also true for the things that we're going through in our country today. For some people around the world, they don't have much of a choice as it comes to ignorance. Whether they live in a secluded jungle tribe or in an oppressive government or something like that. But for those of us who live in America, we have access to countless information and resources. And for the majority of us, we have it right at our fingertips on our smart devices. So we really don't have any justification for our ignorance. So may we be a people who realize ignorance is not bliss. And through studying the Bible, through the leading of the Holy Spirit, and through wise godly counsel and resources, may we educate ourselves so that we can be ready to show those around us the good news of the gospel and what it means to follow God and to live for him in every area and aspect of our lives and in every area and aspect of our society and our culture. If you need help finding these resources in any particular area or aspect, please let myself or one of our other pastors know, and we would be more than happy to help lead you in the right direction and to resources that can give you good, godly counsel and wisdom. And know this, that we love you and that we are praying for you and that we are praying for our country during these trying days and for the days to come. We love you. Hope you all have a great day. May God continue to bless and provide for you and your family.